Good evening, brothers and sisters in the Dharma. This evening's topic is Panchakanda, which is commonly translated as the five aggregates. The five aggregates is one of those things which is quite difficult to really understand. Part of the reason is that the popular or common translation use their own way of explaining it. But today I'm not going to go into the common or popular translations. I'm actually going to use my teacher's translation, Venerable Dr. Punaji. He calls the Panchakanda as the five constituents of the process of perception. Simply put, the Panchakanda is about the process whereby light enters the eye, sound enters the ear, and then we smell something, we taste something, and we touch something, and that produces a perception in the mind, and we begin to form concepts of what we have seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch. That's basically what Panchakanda is about. That process whereby perceptions form in our head based on stimulations from the environment. So a more precise explanation of the meaning of the term Panchakanda is the five constituents of the process of perception. There are really five elements or five constituents. I will go into the more detailed explanation of each constituent later on. But to begin with, I always like to go back to the root of the Buddha's teaching. What is the significance of this five aggregates or Panchakanda? How does it affect us? Right? Basically, if we go back to the root of the Buddha's teaching, we will be able to see where this Panchakanda fits in, how it affects us in many ways. Where the Buddha, in the very first sermon, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, the Buddha taught us about the Four Noble Truths. And what are the Four Noble Truths? The first one is that there is dukkha, there is suffering. And there is the origin of suffering. Then there is, of course, an end to suffering. And finally, there is a way that leads to the ending of suffering, where the Buddha taught us the Noble Eightfold Way, right? The Sublime Eightfold Way that can help us eventually to ultimately end suffering by attaining Nibbana. So these are the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha has taught in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. In the very first Noble Truth, the Buddha spoke about 8 kinds of suffering. And birth is suffering, aging, sickness, and death. These are suffering. Now, from a mundane perspective, it's quite easy to understand how birth, aging, sickness, and death are suffering. But the Buddha went on to describe 4 more. Right? The next 3 are separation from what is pleasing is suffering, right? Union with what is displeasing is suffering, and not to get what wants is suffering. And these are fairly straightforward also. Separation from what is pleasing simply means that we have enjoyed or experienced something pleasant or something that makes us happy or something that makes us feel comfortable, and then we no longer have it. Separated from conditions that make us feel happy or feel good. Then we become angry or upset or anxious or unhappy. Then union with what is displeasing is the opposite. We have experienced things which are hurting us, which are painful, which are things that we don't like, and then we are stuck with it. Union with displeasing. That is suffering. We are stuck with something we don't want. That is suffering. And the next one, number 7, is not to get what wants. All of us have aspirations of wanting something in life. Young man wants to find a wife. Young woman wants to find a husband. Old man wants to stay young. And old woman also wants to keep her hair black, right, and not allow it to turn white, and so on. So we all have wishes, but if the wishes are not granted, then we will experience unhappiness or suffering or dissatisfactoriness. But it is the last one, number 8, which is actually the crux of the root cause of all our suffering. In fact, the first 7 are very straightforward to understand. Number 8 is the one which is at the root of all our suffering. Basically, the Buddha said it is these 5 aggregates, the Panchakanda. The Panchakanda subject to clinging. And of course, the Buddha calls this Panchupadana Kanda. That means Pancha Upadana. Pancha means 5. Upadana simply means clinging or grasping or attachment or personalization. We personalize things. Kanda, these are the aggregates, they call it. And basically this Panchakanda, subject to clinging, is suffering, is dukkha. Now, how does that happen? When the Buddha spoke about this Panchakanda, he's referring to the process of perception. Everything we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we touch. We experience these stimulations from the environment. And then from each of these experiences, we cling on to that experience. We grasp it and we call it mine, I, me, or mine. We personalize it. It happens all the time. We don't realize it, but we are doing it all the time. We are personalizing every experience. A very simple example, you wake up in the morning, you knock your hand against the wall, you feel the pain, right? Then what arises in your mind? I feel the pain. What's the first word? I, you see? And you walk down the street, you accidentally kick your toe on the wall or the lamppost, and you feel the pain, right? And now your foot is hurting, right? Then you say, my foot hurts, or my leg is hurting if you fall down or something like that. What's the first word that arises in your mind? My. See, everything we experience, and we are able to experience things around us, we begin to cling on to it, we begin to personalize that experience and call it I, me, or mine. In fact, that situation in the 21st century has gone so bad that we even cling on to things, or we personalize things that are not animate. They are not part of us. My cell phone. Don't touch my phone. My computer. My car. So all this I, me, and mine is getting stronger and stronger in the modern age. In ancient times, people were not so strong about it, because in ancient times, people did not put so much emphasis on possessions because people did not have so much possessions. But today, we are all burdened with all kinds of possessions. Check your pockets, check your purses. You see how much barang-barang you have inside there. Right? We are burdened with so many possessions, and everything is I, me, or mine. My lipstick, my eyeglasses, my cell phone, my car. Right? The I, me, or mine is getting stronger and stronger every day. And this is what is causing us a lot of suffering. Personalizing it. Not only personalizing objects, but personalizing experiences, personalizing things that we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. You walk around the shopping mall and you see your good friend coming towards you, and you look at him and say, oh, my friend is coming. What's the first word? My. You see, we personalize it so much. And that is the root cause of our suffering. Personalizing everything we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. Panchakanda is about the process of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Upadana is about personalizing, clinging, grasping, attaching, right? And that's why this Pancha Upadana Kanda, simply put, the 5 aggregates or the process of perception subject to clinging, that causes a lot of suffering. Now, going on to the second noble truth, the conditions leading to the causes of suffering, basically, it is this tanha, craving. Right? We react. The word tanha is often translated as craving, but Bhante Punnaji has very wisely investigated that and translated it to call it emotional reaction. So in other words, it's our reaction to everything we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. And when this reaction brings about suffering, what do we do? So the Buddha says it is this tanha which leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there. Simply means if we experience suffering, we experience something that hurts us, the way we try to make ourselves feel better is to go and look for avenues where we can enjoy some pleasures and delight that make us forget about our troubles and our pain and our sorrow. I must admit, I personally did that when I was young, before I became serious about Buddhism. Because when I was happy, of course, I have a good appetite. When I was sad, I drown my sorrows in food. So that's really what happened to me in those days. So the same thing. Well, of course, food can be harmful to the body in the long term, but it is nowhere half as harmful as some of the things that other people are taking, the intoxicants. This is why in the 5 precepts, the 5th precept is so important, that we should refrain from all kinds of intoxicants. Things like cigarette, beer, alcohol, drugs. So all this is really going on. People seek to do things pleasurable so that they can forget about their problems and their worries. Some people drink. Some people go gambling. Some people go to nightclub. Some men womanize. Some women mess around with playboys. So it happens all the time. Right? So people are always seeking ways and means to please themselves, please the body, right? In order to forget about their suffering. And basically all this tanha, all this craving or emotional reaction, there are 3 types. Tanha for sensual pleasures, of course, seeking things that makes us feel pleasurable, enjoying sensual pleasures. Tanha for non-existence, this is the opposite, something which is unpleasant, we don't want it to exist anymore. Right? Things that we don't want, we wish it does not exist. And then, of course, tanha for continued existence. And this is really about this body, the delusion of this self-centered existence. I want to live forever. I want to live longer. Maybe not forever, but I want to live longer. How long, I don't know, but I want to live longer. Ask yourself, who wants to die tomorrow? Who wants to die next month? How about next year? How about in 3 years' time, 5 years' time? Nobody wants that. Everybody wants to live on. And this thing about, living a longer life is so important to so many people. But actually, what is so important about living a longer life? By the time you get to 80, you hardly can enjoy life anymore. You can hardly enjoy things around you anymore. You go and even going on a tour, so your eyesight not so good, you don't see things so beautifully. And then you're not able to enjoy some of the wonderful things that many of these foreign countries or foreign places offer. By the time you're 90, you can't even, probably you'll be too weak to even catch a flight. So why live longer? But we do. We want to. We want to have continued existence. So these 3 tanhas, these 3 so-called cravings, they're actually emotional reaction. The first one is to things that are pleasurable. So we want to enjoy it. So it is called loba. Loba is lust turning into greed. The second one is dosa. This is aversion turning into hatred, something we don't want. We want to get rid of it. For non-existence, we want it to stop existing. So aversion turns into hatred. And the third one is because of the delusion of a self-centered existence, thinking that there is this self that is experiencing the environment. But all that is happening is that we become aware of what's going on in the environment, and we are experiencing this environment from the consciousness. But we then start to equate this consciousness to be living inside this body, therefore this body is me, right? Thinking that this body exists and therefore I am this body, right? So there is this delusion of a self-centered existence, moha. But tanha really means emotional reaction. That's what my teacher pointed out. So today's topic is more about this process of perception. So we go back to the first noble truth. It is about this last condition of suffering, right? The pancha kanda that is subject to personalization, upadana, right?